Welcome everyone to today's Explainer. We're going to be looking at an absolutely unbelievable corporate survival story. You know, we spend so much time talking about fresh, flashy Silicon Valley startups, but today we are focusing our lens on a 175-year-old legacy manufacturing company. Seriously, chances are the very screen you're looking at right now, whether it's in your hand or sitting on your desk, relies on their tech. This is a company that makes physical glass and fiber, yet has somehow positioned itself at the absolute beating heart of the modern artificial intelligence revolution. It's a story of devastating failure, incredible patience, and honestly, a masterclass in strategic leverage.
Okay, let's dive right into this. 5.7 trillion new Taiwan dollars. That is roughly the record-breaking market valuation of Corning today. To truly wrap your head around the sheer magnitude of that present-day success, think about this for a second. That is roughly 1.6 times the market capitalization of Foxconn. Foxconn is the giant that actually assembles the world's iPhones. They've got massive global infrastructure. Yet, this old-school materials manufacturer, the company providing the glass, is currently sitting at a near two-century historical peak, riding the absolute crest of the AI wave. They are an undisputed titan. But to truly understand why this peak is so phenomenal, we gotta look at the valley.
I want you to let this sink in. Minus 99%. This exact same manufacturing giant once suffered a catastrophic stock plunge that wiped out 99% of its value. Think about what a 99% drop actually means for a legacy manufacturer in the real world. That is the visceral reality of factory closures, panicked investors dumping their shares, and a looming, almost certain death sentence. They were staring directly into the abyss of complete corporate bankruptcy. From 5.7 trillion today to a moment in their history where they were essentially reduced to pennies on the dollar. So how does a legacy company survive that, let alone bounce back to become an AI kingmaker?
Section 1. Tech Giants Line Up. Let's look at the modern landscape and the major players fueling this incredible modern-day peak.
Look at the sheer scale and honestly the desperation of these commitments. Apple is throwing down over $3 billion US. Meta locked in a massive $6 billion long-term order. And then we have NVIDIA, literally the poster child of the AI boom, stepping up with huge investments just to secure their spot in line. The biggest, richest, most powerful tech companies on the planet are literally queuing up to hand Corning cash. And it makes perfect sense when you really think about it. NVIDIA can design the most advanced AI chips in the world, sure, but without the physical pipelines to connect massive data center server racks at the speed of light, those chips are totally bottlenecked. That is exactly why they're so desperate.
It all comes down to vital, indispensable physical products. They are the global #1 in optical fiber, the literal physical backbone that makes your high-speed internet and these massive AI data centers even possible. They're the global #1 in smartphone cover glass, with their famous Gorilla Glass, protecting the device you likely use every single day. And their innovation even extends to the medical world with pharmaceutical glass known as Valor Glass. That glass was famously pressure tested at the White House by US President Trump to demonstrate its extreme durability. They manufacture the physical reality that the digital world actually requires to exist.
Section 2. The 99% crash. A very close brush with near corporate death.
Let's move along and see how this builds, because tracing their timeline reveals both sheer longevity and some pretty dramatic volatility. Founded way back in 1851, they survived world wars and massive industrial revolutions. But then comes that historic crash we talked about, the devastating 99% drop. And notice the massive gap that follows, the 10-year rebuild. They absolutely did not bounce back overnight. A 10-year rebuild means quarter after quarter of really tough calls, closing inefficient lines and slowly, painfully clawing their way out of the grave. It was a grueling decade that eventually culminated in this massive AI peak.
The contrast between these two eras is just staggering. You have the old Corning on the brink of bankruptcy, basically a classic cautionary tale of a legacy company failing to adapt, and then you have the new Corning, an undisputed AI winner. By 2025, they were hitting revenues of roughly 492.4 billion new Taiwan dollars. They completely transformed from a dying entity into an unstoppable powerhouse. But the absolutely crucial insight here is that the unstoppable company we see today was built entirely using the harsh lessons learned by the ruined company of the past.
Section 3. The 10-year comeback. A masterclass in rebuilding.
The architect of this entire comeback is CEO Wendell Weeks. And you know what the most fascinating part of his story is? He was actually at the helm when things went terribly wrong. He made the massive, near-fatal business decisions that led to that crazy crash. In almost any other corporate environment on Earth, the board of directors would have fired him immediately just to appease angry shareholders. But they made an incredibly rare decision. They kept him. They allowed him to use his own colossal failure as an educational asset, recognizing that no one understood the actual flaws in the business better than the very person who exposed them. And Weeks took a profoundly accountable, highly disciplined approach to fixing his own mess. Step 1 wasn't some slick PR campaign, it was directly addressing and correcting the two major strategic errors he had made. He didn't hide from his mistakes, he reversed them. Step 2 was just buckling down for that grueling 10-year climb out of the corporate trough. No quick fixes, no magic bullets, just a decade of meticulous, systematic rebuilding of the company's core competencies. It's a massive lesson in taking profound personal accountability when things go completely wrong.
Section 4. Pay first for capacity, the absolute masterstroke of their comeback.
So the crucial point comes down to this incredibly aggressive ultimatum. Want capacity? Pay first. When the AI boom hit, and companies like Meta and Apple suddenly needed massive amounts of specialized optical fiber and glass, Corning didn't just borrow money to build new factories like they might have in the past. Having survived near bankruptcy, they were fiercely protective of their balance sheet. So they looked at the world's richest tech giants and essentially said, hey, if you want us to make this for you, you have to fund our factory expansion up front. This is brilliant because it completely shifts the massive capital expenditure risk directly from Corning onto their own client.
And this brilliantly illustrates the result of that audacious strategy, a massive 19% year-over-year revenue growth in 2025. Because they made the tech giants pay for the capacity up front, Corning completely mitigated their own risk. They locked in long-term revenues and expanded their manufacturing footprint without taking on a single cent of toxic debt. It's the ultimate proof that this bold, unapologetic strategy worked perfectly, and it was a direct result of their previous painful restructuring.
Which leaves us with this final, super fascinating thought. How can surviving a near-death failure actually become a company's greatest strategic asset? If CEO Wendell Weeks hadn't steered Corning into a 99% crash, would he have ever learned the harsh lessons necessary to force Apple and Meta to pay for capacity upfront a decade later? Did the trauma of near bankruptcy directly forge the $5.7 trillion AI victor we see today? It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the most catastrophic mistakes are the literal blueprints for undisputed market dominance. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and as always, keep questioning the data.